Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Stephen Gilligan. I'm a psychologist here in Encinitas, California. And I want to take a few minutes of your time to invite you to participate in the next certification program that we're doing in Creative Mind. It's a 6-day basic certification course, all virtual. First 3 days are in late October 2025. Second 3 days are in late November 2025. This will be the third certification program that we have done in Creative Mind. And it's really such an interesting community of consciousness that evolves each time we do it. I've been working for 50 years now in this area, and I think it's the most interesting perhaps transformational work that I have been a part of during that whole career. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. I think that was Plato. And I think that the creative mind work has come as a sort of a feeling of a necessary generative response to the great meta-crisis that we are deeply, deeply absorbed in. Started maybe, 5 years ago with COVID, many other things happening at the same time. And you would think by now it would be subsiding, but I don't know, maybe we're just at the beginning of an extended period of major crisis. One of the things that I learned from Milton Erickson is that when disturbances hit, when symptoms hit, when people's ego is not in control anymore, it's a really good sign that something as deep is trying to transform, that something deep is trying to heal, that something deep is trying to be born. And so we look to create the conditions that can hold all that disturbance, that can connect underneath it to a deeper source. And then in that safe, skillful conversational space, to be able to see how out of that suffering, new birth and new gifts can be able to emerge. In trying to apply that work with the present meta-crisis, it's a lot of difficulties. Yeah, one attempt after the other indicated that whatever the maps that we have been carrying, whatever the presuppositions that we've been living from, they're no longer adequate to meet the challenges of our time. So what the work has always taught us is those are the times where anything we're trying to do to change it up here usually is making things worse. So we have to find a way to surrender to something more deep. We have to find a way to have some sort of positive consciousness in that, and then let that deeper than ego consciousness be able to guide us, let us surf it into some new territory. That's what the creative mind tradition has been exploring. And it really arrives at a notion of identity that is so much deeper than what we have just implicitly assumed, certainly in the West. We have this sense that consciousness is creating all of reality. And consciousness has these 3 levels. At the first level, pure consciousness, we might call it spirit, we might call it source. It's before time, it's before space. There's a whole lot of amazing stuff there. This is where I think modern science, certain areas of modern science and spirituality converge, to really talk about our base as something infinite and deep and unknowable directly to our verbal minds. That's the first level in creative mind, spirit. Second level is nature and all of the nonverbal wisdom and intelligence. This second level is what we usually call the creative unconscious. And our local backwater planet here is the 4 billion years of consciousness that has slowly but surely evolved, surely because it's all interconnected. Nothing can really disconnect or separate out from the whole. And so we have these rhythms, these sort of dynamic yin-yangs, these processes of a cyclical consciousness that slowly evolves. We have now opened, and really in the scope of things, in a nanosecond, maybe 100,000 years of human development, this third level, which is a virtual verbal level. We might think of it as the first AI program. This verbal mind can be able to step out of time and space, can be able to imagine anything. Let's go to the moon. Let's create an idea around freedom. Let's do this. Can imagine anything and then use it as a North Star to organize one's behavior and thinking and actions to be able to get there. You would think that we would be in heaven with that capacity, but we find out that it equally can produce hell, because this virtual mind, this ego mind, this verbal mind has the capacity, and always does as a first step, to dissociate, to step away from time and space and the feeling of interconnection and go into some imagination. That is an amazing thing, but in order to make it positive, in order to make it integral, to make it something that really helps actual life in this world, it has to come back. It has to be apart from and then be a part of. And I think that's where we're stuck right now. We, in our verbal mind, have become so disconnected, so much in this artificial intelligence, so much in this sort of Facebook time, that our thinking and our feeling and our knowing and our actions are not really interconnected to life itself. And as a result, we're getting further and further away from any sense of feeling community, of feeling interconnection, of feeling belonging to something bigger than ourselves. So, creative mind looks to establish a set of principles and methods where we can be able to cultivate that. We can cultivate what does it mean to touch spirit. We can cultivate, for example, from Erickson's hypnotherapy work, what does it mean to be a bodiless mind? What does it mean as that spirit to be able to go anywhere, do anything, go through time, go through space? That's pretty amazing. But it's not enough for a creative mind. We need this second level where we have an embodied, interconnected sense of being part of the living world. Here we have the yin and the yang, the breathing in, the breathing out, the being born, the dying, the self, the other, all of the rhythm of the dynamic complementarities of living consciousness. We need to be part of that too. Not only in our individual self, but to feel that everything in the world, I am that. I am you. I am that culture. I am those trees. I am that ocean. Not in a disconnected way, but in a real way, like we feel at our deepest moments. That we don't feel separate. We don't feel isolated. From there, we can begin to use this sort of pilot wave guide, if you will. That's our conscious mind, to be able to ride those waves, to be able to shift among the many, 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 many different possibilities to create what this virtual mind really, I think, is evolved to do, which is individuate consciousness. So that each point in the field, each wave in the ocean has its own unique way of expressing the ocean, has its own unique way of expressing the spirit. And so by differentiating those levels, allows us to really consciously connect to each of those levels. Each one has its own logic, its own language, its own experience. And then when we feel that the creative mind is the sort of the golden thread that interweaves all of that, we can begin to approach a challenge, we can approach a particular problem in this multiverse sort of way. The possibilities and the potential in this are just so awesome. Not in the technique, but in what it's asking us to do and making a shift in our identity that we use to think, to act, to feel, to create, to deal with challenges. So that's just a little bit of the creative mind. I hope by the time of the certification we'll have a number of the books out in this field. But this is a community to belong to. If you've done already the first or the second, you are invited. And we'll give you a special rate for that. But I think, as you know, that the work keeps growing and changing in many, many different ways. So we hope to see you at that time. Bye-bye.